Learn how to automate Lightroom like a pro and create your best work faster than you ever thought possible. Adobe Lightroom Classic is a really powerful way to view and edit images. It's a desktop-based solution for all of your photo needs. But what if you're away from your computer and need to see and work with your photos? Fortunately, there's an easy way to do that. I'm going to show you how to use Lightroom Classic with Lightroom Mobile. So, what is Lightroom Mobile? In short, it's a version of Lightroom that works on your phone or tablet. It's a powerful way to view images from anywhere. Plus, you can make edits on the go as well. Now, keep in mind, Lightroom Mobile isn't as robust or fully featured as Lightroom Classic, but it offers you a key advantage. You can bring it anywhere. It's a great companion to Lightroom Classic. Let's learn how to make the two apps work together. Lightroom Classic edits aren't synced to other devices by default. That means you won't automatically find them when you launch Lightroom Mobile. To sync, you'll need to follow a simple process here. Let's dive in and get started. To begin, we'll work in Lightroom Classic here. As you can see, I have an image edited that's visible here in the center. What I want to do is sync it up so that I can view it in Lightroom Mobile on my other devices. The first step is to ensure that your Lightroom Classic is set up to sync. That's done by coming up here to the upper right corner of Lightroom and clicking on this cloud icon. Click on this here, and you'll see these options listed out. I'll click on this sync button here and watch as the Lightroom catalog I'm working with here is synced. When it's finished, you'll see this green check mark here on the cloud icon. This indicates that the syncing steps are complete. Now we're ready to get to work. Let's move over here to the left in the Navigator sidebar. You should always see this visible, no matter what module you happen to be working in over on the right. Down below are presets here. Scroll down and find the Collections drop-down menu. On its right side, find this plus sign icon. This lets us add a new collection, and so you'll want to go ahead and click on it as you're seeing me do here. You'll see these menu items listed off here, and we'll click on the one at the top. It's called Create Collection. The Create Collection menu will open here in the center of the screen. Up at the top, we can give the collection a name. Now, this can be literally anything you want, but it really helps to be short and descriptive. Over time, most of us will find ourselves with dozens of different collections. Names that are too generic are pretty easily lost in the shuffle. I'll name this one Sync Collection by typing it in here. Then, we'll want to be sure and check this Sync with Lightroom box here at the bottom. Finally, click Create down here in the corner. Now we have a collection set up in Lightroom Classic that we can sync seamlessly with Lightroom Mobile. Next up, let's add some images to our collection. I'll jump over here to the catalog and select a few images as you're seeing me do here. Then I'll click and drag them with my cursor, dropping them over our Sync Collection here in the Sync Collection sidebar. Watch as the image count number here increases. When you open the Sync Collection like this, you'll see those chosen images inside. Over here on the right, let's click this Sync button. As it works, Lightroom will sync this collection so that it will be viewable on Lightroom Mobile. When it's finished, let's jump over and look at Lightroom Mobile. Here on the Library tab, under Albums, you can see the Sync collection appear. Tap on it to open it up, and you'll see the same images inside. Just like that, we've learned how to use Lightroom Classic with Lightroom Mobile. It's a quick and powerful way to ensure that you can always work with your favorite Lightroom images from anywhere. Give it a try today if you want to view and edit your photos on the go. Before I jump into my second pro tip, I want to tell you about Envato Elements. It's an unlimited creative subscription with thousands of premium Lightroom presets. You'll also unlock unlimited downloads of video templates, stock video, audio tracks, and so much more. Subscribe now with the link in the description. In this lesson, we'll talk about direct-to-desktop camera tethering in Lightroom. So, what is tethering in Lightroom? Fundamentally, it means physically connecting your camera to your computer and capturing the images into Adobe Lightroom itself. When you do this, images that you capture are immediately imported into Lightroom in real time. You can see them and edit them right away. What's more, Lightroom actually lets you control the camera itself. This is incredibly useful, especially if you're working in a studio setting. Working fully on your computer, you can capture images, see them, and make quick edits all at once. You won't even have to touch your camera, nor will you be spending time importing photos manually over and over. It's really a powerful tool. All you'll need to get started is your camera, and a cable to plug it into your computer. Keep in mind, Lightroom is geared around Nikon and Canon cameras here. Many other brands may not work in this setting. To get started, go ahead and connect your camera to your computer. With it plugged in, go ahead and launch Adobe Lightroom Classic. I'll come up here to the File menu, which sits in the upper left of the Lightroom Classic screen. Clicking on it, let's come down here to this tethered capture option. Hover over it, and from the list of options here, choose Start Tethered Capture. Lightroom Classic will launch the tethered capture settings box here. We can start up here at the top by giving the session a name. This is a quick way to categorize the images that we're going to capture. Try and be brief, yet descriptive here. If you're shooting tethered day after day, you'll appreciate naming specific shoots in clear, easy-to-find ways. In the naming group here, Lightroom offers several ways to name each individual image file. This is driven by the name of the session. By default, Lightroom will use our session name followed by a sequential number. I really like this method of organizing, so generally I'll leave it in place. This start number begins at 1, but you can always choose a different value if you need to. Further down, we can set the file location for our images. Optionally, I can use this Add to Collection checkbox if I want to add these images to a certain Lightroom collection. This is a good option, but I often like to leave this unchecked. When I'm finished shooting, I can always add images to collections later. And finally, we can add metadata automatically here in the Information group. Metadata consists of these keywords, which are searchable and indexable descriptions applied to a given image file. This makes your images easier to search for and find later on. When you've finished with these settings, click OK. Lightroom will get to work, detecting the camera that you have plugged in. Now, it may not always display right away. That's often because your camera may have gone to sleep. To wake it up, you can often press the shutter and grab a couple of quick shots. If it still doesn't appear in Lightroom, you may need to unplug and reconnect your camera. Once your camera is detected, you'll see it appear here in the center of your Lightroom window. This shutter button here is clickable, and it captures a photo with your camera each time you click it. Over in the middle, I can open up these drop downs to adjust some fundamental settings on my camera. For example, it's easy to adjust the shutter speed, aperture, and more. More complex adjustments can still be made on your camera itself. But these settings are a quick way to dial in the more basic settings that most of us work with every day as photographers. Now, as you shoot, you'll see your images appear in real time in Lightroom. In an instant, you can tell if you want to make any adjustments to the image composition itself. Instead of previewing captured shots on the tiny screen on the back of your camera, you're now viewing them in your favorite editor. With the images captured, you can make edits and tweaks in real time, and you can add them to collections in a flash. As you can see, tethering in Adobe Lightroom elevates your photography. It's an amazingly simple, powerful way to control your camera right from your computer. It lets you handle shoots in a systematic way. In real time, you can dial in your image captures to look your best, and you can rapidly edit and sort the finished results. It's a must-do if you find yourself working in a studio setting. Getting your images into Lightroom can be a pain. And for those of us that capture a high volume of images, this can seem rather daunting. Wouldn't it be great to have Lightroom Classic import photos automatically? Fortunately, there's an easy way to do exactly that. You're going to learn how to auto-import photos from a networked folder in Lightroom Classic. So what does this mean? Well, in essence, it means that Lightroom will watch a folder of your choice that you already have stored on your computer. Whenever you add images to that folder, they'll be imported into Lightroom Classic automatically. Along the way, you can specify custom settings like metadata keywords that can be added on the fly. Let's learn how. Before we dive in, let's think about the advantages of doing this. First and foremost, it's a convenient way to streamline your daily editing workflow. Auto import in Lightroom Classic eliminates the need to manually import images. That takes time, and it's easy to forget certain batches of images. Plus, it's a great way to collaborate with others. Imagine that you're working with several photographers who have access to the same shared folder. By watching and auto-importing from that folder, you can pull every image captured by your team into Lightroom. It helps you stay in sync while categorizing and editing images faster and more smoothly than ever before. This is also true if you import photos from your camera directly into a specific folder. Now, your auto import from your camera can then auto import right into Lightroom Classic. It's a top time saver, and it's easy to set up. With Lightroom open here, let's set up a folder to watch for auto import. What we're doing is telling Lightroom to keep an eye on a given folder on our computer. Whenever an image is added to that folder, Lightroom will import that photo right away. No manual work required. To get started, come up here to the File dropdown. You'll find it here in the upper left corner of your Lightroom screen. Click on File, then scroll down to this Auto Import option here. Hovering over it, you'll see the option to choose Auto Import Settings. Go ahead and click on this as you're seeing me do here. Now, Lightroom Classic will launch the Auto Import Settings box. Here in the Watched Folder section, we'll click on Choose. This is where we'll now browse to a folder on our computer that we want to watch. Remember, any photo placed in this folder from here on will be imported into Lightroom automatically. Keep in mind, for this initial setup, you'll have to select a completely empty folder. If you have a folder with images already inside, or even other folders, it won't work. Browse to a folder to watch and click to select it. Now you're able to check this Enable Auto Import box up here to activate this great feature in Adobe Lightroom. Below, we can choose a destination for the imported images. Typically, it will default to the standard Pictures folder location on your computer, but you can always change this by navigating through the Choose menu like we did above. Similarly, you can rename the subfolder where imported images will be placed. Down below here in the Information group, you can set up metadata to add automatically to photos that are auto-imported in Lightroom. You can choose from presets and other settings here in these dropdowns. And below, you can add in your own metadata keywords. Think of these as text descriptors that you can add to images. They're a big help when indexing and searching for photos from a huge library of images. Since this will be applied to every image you auto-import, keep these types of settings very general and only use ones that would apply to every image that you import. When you're finished building out your custom settings, go ahead and click OK here in the lower right corner. That's all that it takes. Now, any image that's added to your watched folder will be imported into Lightroom automatically, and any of the settings you've chosen to apply to those images will be added by default. Think of this as one of the best time-saving tools Lightroom Classic has to offer. It's especially helpful if you're collaborating with others and need to bring many images together in real time. As a photographer, it's a great idea to shoot images in RAW format. These are unprocessed image files. When you work with them in an editor like Adobe Lightroom Classic, they really come to life. And they give you far more creative control than you'd get if you shoot in a fully processed JPEG format, for example. But have you ever thought about how RAW files become finished images? Well, in Lightroom, this is steered by something called camera profiles. When you learn how they work, you'll have a new and powerful creative tool. In this video, you're going to learn how to calibrate your RAW files with custom profiles in Lightroom Classic. These custom profiles tell Lightroom how to process and display your RAW image files. And when you work with them, you'll unlock key advantages. First and foremost is the incredible color accuracy. As we all know, it's difficult for any camera to perfectly capture every natural shade and hue that our eyes can see. But that doesn't mean that these details are lost. Rather, they simply need to be brought back to life in the editing process. Profiles have been built around specific camera and lens combinations. These help you uncover natural shades, without you having to spend endless hours adjusting dozens of sliders in Lightroom, trying to replicate what you saw with your own eyes through the lens. Additionally, custom profiles let you develop and refine your own custom style. Think of the work of notable photographers that you may know. Odds are, their work has a certain look and feel that's often hard to quantify. Camera profiles fuel this by processing diverse captures in similar ways. This preserves a constant visual style that's easy to recognize. What's more, custom camera profiles save you time. Again, what they do is tell Lightroom how to display a given RAW image. By doing so, these profiles are making a plethora of background adjustments with just a single click. They really fuel vast improvements in workflow time and style consistency alike. They do this by controlling relationships between colors in powerful ways. While the adjustments themselves may be unseen in the sliders, they combine to form a stunning finished result. Let's add a custom camera profile to a photo to see how it works. Begin by working in Lightroom Classic here. As you can see, I've got a RAW image open here that I've just imported from my camera. It needs some work, and to kickstart the editing process, I'm going to select a custom profile for it. To do this, come up to the upper right corner of your Lightroom screen. Then click on Develop here. This launches the Develop module, which is really the nerve center for many major edits in Adobe Lightroom. Below the histogram, notice this folder tree. In it, you'll see drop-downs labeled Basic, Tone Curve, HSL Color, and so on. The one we want to launch here is Basic. Do this by clicking on the drop-down arrow as you're seeing me do here. Now, at the top of this list, find the Profile section. This is where we can select and control custom camera profiles right inside Lightroom Classic. I'll click on this arrow here and you'll see a list of profile options to choose from. By default, Lightroom will show you a handful of Adobe's pre-built camera profiles. You can click on one of these to apply it to an image. For example, I'll click Adobe Vivid here. Watch as the image transforms. It's fairly subtle, but you can definitely see how the colors in the image have started to pop. It's less dull and flat than it was before. Back on the list of options, choose Browse to find more. Now you'll see many categories of custom camera profiles in Lightroom. They're grouped in several ways. For example, camera matching profiles are built specifically for Canon cameras. They're meant to replicate the real-world look of your images by making adjustments in areas that your specific camera might not have captured well. Below, you'll see more generic categories, labeled Artistic, B&W for black and white, Modern, and Vintage. These unlock even more creative options. Watch what happens as we browse through our image reverted back to its unedited RAW format. As I hover over different thumbnails, you'll see the profile preview on the full image. Again, every change is subtle, without being overly dramatic, but the transformations are clear. By using profiles, you're really controlling how the colors in your raw images interact. I like to think of these profiles as a starting point when I edit. Once I've selected one for an image, I can use the full suite of Lightroom editing tools to make other changes. But this lays a foundation for a consistent style and feel for my images. And more importantly, it helps every photo more accurately reflect the real-world scene that it captures. It helps you get to the true heart of every image you work with in Adobe Lightroom. Metadata. It's what helps us index and categorize our Adobe Lightroom Classic photos. Keywords are a major part of this process. Think of them as text descriptors that you can add to an image. They're searchable elements that help us classify and look up the specific images we have in mind. But without careful maintenance and planning, keywords can become confusing. The key is to use them with care and mindfulness. In this video, you'll learn about implementing a controlled vocabulary in Adobe Lightroom. What does this mean? Well, think about how keywords work. You can add any keyword that you want to any image. Suppose you've taken several photos of a pickup truck. For the first photo, you might give it a keyword like truck. For the next, you might say pickup. On a third, you might get more generic and say vehicle. All of that's fine, but now your keywords don't do you that much good. If you want to type in pickup and see every image from the shoot, you won't find them. The same will be true if you search for truck. It's easy to see that keywords can get confusing. That's why it's critical to implement a controlled vocabulary in Adobe Lightroom. The easiest way to do this is right from the beginning. Before you add a single photo to Lightroom, it pays to have a controlled keyword vocabulary built out. It can evolve as you add more and more photos over the years. But of course, many of us have messy libraries that need attention, and we don't have the luxury of starting from scratch. And that's okay. We'll look at several options here. To plan keywords up front, it's a great idea to use a mind map. This is basically a visual outline that helps you stay focused and on message. Imagine, for example, that I'm a landscape photographer. I might build a mind map of keywords that looks like this. Notice at the top, I have an overarching keyword landscapes. Below, I'll list some sub-keywords: beach, mountains, urban, rural, and so forth. With this built out, I'll keep it in view when I add images to Lightroom. Imagine a shot like this. As you can see, it shows a scene from the beach. I'll add a keyword to it from my hierarchy, beach. I could always add others, like shore, sand, or coast, but I want to always keep the keyword beach in place for any photo like this. That way, when I search for the keyword beach, I'll immediately see every image in my library taken at the beach. The key here is really discipline. Build a rigid hierarchy for keywords in advance, and apply the logical rules within it to each new set of images. This definitely takes some time and effort, but the rewards are reaped every day. You'll have a clear, concise, and easy to search image catalog at your fingertips. And you won't be left with images missing from your searches because they have random or unfitting keywords applied to them. But what about images you already have in your library? Odds are you'll have some overlapping keywords. Invest the time in processing keywords and auditing those you already have in place. Looking at my keywords in Lightroom here, you'll see that I have several that are very similar. What I'll do is go through and reclassify these. I'll choose one version to apply to all similar photos. Then I'll go into the images that have alternate keywords and update them to match. As you're seeing me do here, I can swap out those unfitting keywords for the keyword that I've elected to use across the category. Think of it as keyword housekeeping. Again, this takes some time and effort, but it always pays off in the end. You'll thank yourself for building out a clearly indexed and easily searchable catalog in Adobe Lightroom Classic. One last tip. Once you've purged unwanted keywords, the last thing you want is to accidentally start using them again. Fortunately, Lightroom makes it easy to delete unused keywords. To do that, I'll come up here to the metadata dropdown and click on it. From this list of options, down at the very bottom, let's click Purge Unused Keywords. In a flash, Lightroom will delete any keywords that we have saved, but that we aren't using for any images. This is a quick and easy way to clean it up so that you don't accidentally apply those keywords that you didn't intend to use later on. As you can see, implementing a controlled vocabulary in Adobe Lightroom takes some work. It involves both careful planning and ongoing management of your Lightroom image collection. The key is to choose a set of keywords to apply to a given style of image and then apply them consistently. It's rewarding in the end, thanks to having a tightly controlled library that's easy to search and filter. Exposure really controls the look and feel of an image. But when you're shooting photos, your camera may vary the exposure setting from moment to moment. You might not always find yourself with a consistent look and feel. Fortunately, Adobe Lightroom Classic offers an easy remedy. In this video, you're going to learn how to match total exposure in Adobe Lightroom Classic. With this technique, you can take a baseline exposure setting from one image and easily apply it to many others. It's quick and easy to do, and it helps every photo you edit look its very best. Let's dive in and look at 2 ways to match total exposure in Lightroom Classic. First, we'll copy and paste settings. As you can see, I'm working with an image here from my Lightroom catalog. I've made some exposure adjustments, and now I want to transfer them to a second image. Let's use the copy menu in Lightroom Classic to do exactly that. With the edits made, be sure that you're working in Lightroom's Develop module. Then find the Navigator sidebar here on the left side of Lightroom. Down at the bottom, you'll see this copy button. Now, remember what we're wanting to do here. We want to copy the exposure settings from this image to another image. If we've made other edits, those don't need to transfer over. Go ahead and click on Copy as you're seeing me do here. When you click Copy, watch as this Copy Settings menu launches. As you can see, Lightroom selects a wide array of adjustments to copy. Every setting with a box checked will be copied, and therefore pasted, onto a new image. But here, we only want to copy the exposure setting. To do this, I'm going to click on Check None down here at the bottom. What this does is deselect every setting. Then, I'll click the checkbox here besides exposure. This ensures that only the exposure setting unique to this image is copied to my clipboard for pasting on another unique image. With these settings specified, click on Copy. Then navigate to a second image in your library. This can be any photo that you have, and it's the one we'll add the exposure settings to. Go ahead and open that second image, then choose Paste here in the lower left. Just like that, Adobe Lightroom Classic will paste the exposure settings from your first image to the second image. Now, let's look at a second technique. What if you want to apply the same exposure settings to multiple images at one time? Instead of pasting one by one, you can do that in bulk. Let's get started here by working in the Develop module again. As you can see, I have this photo edited with some custom exposure settings. Let's jump into Grid View here. Then I'll select some images that I want to add these same exposure settings to. To do that, let's come up here to the Photo menu, found up here at the top of Lightroom. Click on it as you're seeing me do here, and scroll down this list of options. Near the bottom, let's hover over Develop Settings, and then choose Match Total Exposure. In an instant, Lightroom Classic will apply the exposure settings from your original image to the other photos that you have selected. This is truly a powerful time saver if you need to apply the same exposure settings to many photos at one time. This is a winning technique, especially if you have many images to edit at once. In many cases, every image from a given shoot will have been captured in similar lighting conditions. By making an exposure adjustment once, you can easily transfer it to other images in the collection. This saves a ton of time. Think about the arduous process of making the same adjustment dozens or even hundreds of times over. It's not feasible, and thanks to Lightroom Classic, it's also completely unnecessary. As you can see, it's easy to match total exposure in Adobe Lightroom Classic. With two great techniques, you can do this very quickly. Give it a try next time you need to apply the same settings across multiple images in your library. You'll be glad you did. I'm Andrew Childress for Envato Tuts Plus, and thanks so much for joining me. If you found this video useful, make sure you subscribe to the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel and check out all our other Lightroom tutorials.